Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I am Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the top headlines. The European Union bans multiple entry visas for Russian nationals, forcing them to reapply for each trip as part of new pressures over the war in Ukraine. Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is set to meet with President Donald Trump in Washington to request a waiver on US sanctions targeting Russian oil, as his country remains heavily reliant on Moscow's energy. Hundreds of US flights are cancelled after officials ordered airlines to cut traffic at 40 major airports, as unpaid air traffic controllers struggled with staff shortages during the record federal shutdown. Afghan and Pakistani negotiators are holding urgent talks in Istanbul after deadly border clashes threatened a fragile truce reached last month in Qatar. And China's exports fell 1.1% in October, marking the first drop in 8 months amid renewed trade tensions ahead of Xi Jinping's meeting with Donald Trump. We start today with a glittering pageant night. The world watched it. The contestants came to celebrate beauty, but ending up staging a mass walkout. It was the 74th Miss Universe pageant. More than 120 candidates arrived in Thailand's capital, Bangkok. And here's what unfolded. Participants had gathered for the sash ceremony, but that event turned into controversy. Miss Mexico was berated by the organiser. Her name, Fatima Bosch. The national director of Miss Universe Thailand called her out for not posting promotional content and accused her of not cooperating with the event team. His name is N18G Regressive. Bosch, who is Miss Mexico, tried to defend herself, but the official called in security. Media present at the event reported that he called her, and I quote, dumbhead. Other contestants came to support her, but he threatened to disqualify them. One by one, the crowd stood up in solidarity with her and walked out of the event hall. Reigning Miss Universe Victoria Kaya was among them. She said the behaviour was beyond disrespectful. The incident has since gone viral. Cameras captured the walkout. Clips widely circulated on social media, and the hashtag Fatima Bosch started trending. After the incident, Miss Mexico spoke to local media.
I love Thailand. I respect your people and your culture deeply, but what your director just did was not respectful. He called me dumb because he has issues with the organisation. That's not fair. I'm here doing my best, being kind to everyone. He just attacked me and told me to shut up. The world needs to see this because we are empowered women, and no one should silence our voices.
After the backlash, the director of Miss Universe Thailand publicly apologised. But he denied calling Bosch dumbhead. He said he didn't mean to humiliate anyone.
So, for international press, I didn't say dumbhead, even 1 second. So, could you please check it again in our Facebook Miss Universe Thailand? I said damage. If she believe and listen to National Director, it damage to you or to the Queen. I forgot it. But I said damage, not dumbhead. This issue has dragged me down to this point. I understand and I apologize. I am a human who can feel hurt and discouraged.
But the damage was already beyond control. The Miss Universe organisation condemned his remarks. They backed Miss Mexico. Former winners and participants of the contest too sided with her. The president of Miss Universe vowed legal action against him.
I have instructed the new CEO, Mario Bucaro, to issue a statement on behalf of the Miss Universe organization outlining the corporate and legal actions we will undertake as a result of the series of malicious acts committed by Nawad.
Now, Fatima Bosch is still in the running for Miss Universe, but this moment has already made its mark. A moment that started with insults and ended up turning into a global stand for respect. However, that's not the only takeaway here. Yes, Miss Mexico may have struck a chord with women around the world. The walkout might be a reminder that respect outshines the runway, but there's a deeper debate about whether beauty pageants still belong in today's world. Such shows continue to judge women on appearance, on height, on weight, and on certain standards of beauty which objectify women. What started as a so-called celebration of beauty has now turned into a showdown of beauty, and that's where the glitters start to fade. Hence, the question remains, do these stages really celebrate women or limit them? Moving on now to Vietnam. Typhoon Kalmagi tore across Vietnam's central coast, unleashing fierce winds, torrential rains and massive waves after devastating the Philippines earlier this week. At least 5 people were reported dead in Vietnam, adding to the Philippines' rising death toll of nearly 200.
You can tell that life is hard for us here from this flooded rice paddy field. The water receded from our home, so we moved our furniture back. And 3 days later, a storm came again and brought heavy rain. We are suffering from the fact that for this year, when a storm comes, it rains very heavy and lasts for weeks.
The powerful storm made landfall in Vietnam's Gia Lai province, packing sustained winds of up to 183 kilometers per hour, with gusts reaching 220 kilometers per hour. Floodwaters surged through low-lying areas, while landslides and power cuts added to the chaos. Nearly 500,000 people were evacuated, many by boat, as homes crumbled and roofs were torn off.
I lost most of my belongings together with my livestock and poultry because they drowned. The water came too suddenly, and I didn't have enough time to move them to high ground.
Rescue teams and soldiers worked through the night to clear debris and restore electricity. The state power company reported 1.6 million customers without power, though services to a third had been restored. In coastal cities like Da Nang and Quy Nhon, waves of up to 3 meters battered the shoreline, while in Dak Lak province, trees were uprooted and roads submerged. The Environment Ministry confirmed that 57 homes had collapsed, with more than 3,000 others damaged. Kalmagi has brought more than 24 inches of rainfall to certain areas, a brutal blow for central Vietnam, which was already grappling with record-breaking floods that killed 47 people last week. Before striking Vietnam, Typhoon Kalmagi carved a deadly path through the central Philippines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has declared a state of emergency as the nation reels from the destruction. In Cebu province, floodwaters described as unprecedented surged through towns and cities, sweeping away homes, vehicles and even massive shipping containers. Cebu officials reported 28 fatalities, underscoring the scale of devastation across the region. Scientists warn that climate change is making storms like Kalmagi stronger and wetter. Warmer oceans are fueling rapid intensification, while a hotter atmosphere holds more moisture, resulting in heavier downpours. Vietnam, which typically faces around 10 tropical storms a year, has already endured 13 in 2025. The National Statistics Office said natural disasters have killed or left missing 279 people so far this year, causing more than $2 billion in damage. As Kalmagi moves inland and weakens, forecasters warn of continued heavy rainfall across the central coast, and it is threatening yet more flooding for a nation already battered by nature's fury. Let's now shift our focus to the United States. 3 people were killed in a US military strike on a vessel in the Caribbean. The Trump administration said the boat was linked to drug cartels as part of an ongoing anti-narcotics campaign. The strike has renewed debate in Washington over the legality of these operations. The US military carried out a strike on a vessel in the Caribbean on Thursday, killing 3 people. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the operation was ordered by President Donald Trump and targeted a vessel operated by a designated terrorist organisation. He added that the ship was trafficking narcotics in international waters and confirmed that no American personnel were harmed. The strike is part of a wider campaign the Trump administration says aims to curb the flow of drugs into the United States. Since September, US forces have conducted at least 17 operations like this, destroying 18 boats and killing around 70 people. Donald Trump's administration has amassed a major military presence across Latin America, calling it part of a crackdown on drug trafficking. The US has deployed 6 Navy vessels in the Caribbean, stationed F-35 stealth jets in Puerto Rico, and sent the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group to the region. US administration officials told Congress that the United States was now in what they called an armed conflict with Latin American drug cartels. They said those targeted were unlawful combatants, allowing the government to conduct lethal strikes without a judicial review based on a classified Justice Department finding. Human rights groups and several lawmakers questioned that interpretation, arguing that suspected traffickers should face prosecution instead of military action.
So the message all of us should send to the President of the United States is quit engaging in illegal actions in the Caribbean and international waters, blowing up boats and people in an extrajudicial fashion. And when it comes to Venezuela, stop making these threats and amassing military assets off the shore and claiming you somehow have the authority to do that. The Constitution invests the authority to go to war with the United States Congress. That's what this resolution is all about.
Well, tensions between the United States and Venezuela have grown since the first series of strikes near the Venezuelan coast. Washington has accused President Nicolas Maduro's government of drug trafficking. Maduro has denied these allegations. Earlier, President Trump defended the legality of his operations, saying the administration had the authority to act against cartels in international waters.
Yes, we do. We have legal authority, right? We're allowed to do that. And if we do by land, we may go back to Congress. But we have, this is a national security problem. They killed 300,000 people last year, these drugs coming in. They killed 300,000 Americans last year, and that gives you legal authority. We have a national security, really, I will say this, when you look at the people we're dealing with, and we know them, we know the people coming in, we know the boats, we know everything else, we're allowed to do it.
The US has long conducted maritime drug interdiction operations in the Caribbean and Pacific. US Senate Republicans blocked a resolution on Thursday that would have restricted President Donald Trump's ability to launch military strikes without congressional approval. The vote was 51-49, largely along party lines, with only 2 Republicans joining Democrats in support of the measure. But the recent shift toward direct military strikes marked a major departure from past policy, which focused on arrests, prosecutions and drug seizures, rather than lethal force. Let's now shift focus to West Asia. Israel has carried out a new wave of airstrikes in southern Lebanon, its heaviest in months, targeting what it claims are Hezbollah positions. The attacks came despite a ceasefire agreement signed nearly a year ago between the two sides. Israeli warplanes struck several towns in southern Lebanon on Thursday. The Israeli military said the operation aims to prevent Hezbollah from rebuilding its military infrastructure in the region. A video released by the Israeli army showed multiple explosions. The airstrikes began about an hour after the Israeli military issued evacuation orders for residents in at least 5 southern towns. Lebanon's health ministry has not reported any deaths so far, though an earlier strike on Thursday killed 1. Following the strikes, residents and local officials urged the Lebanese government to investigate the situation and assess the damage.
After the enemy failed to achieve its objectives, I saw that today it has gone back to hitting civilians' homes. This is the responsibility of the Lebanese state, the Prime Minister and the President to address. We are in a very dangerous situation. If things are heading this way and continue like this, then all hope is lost. No one knows where the consequences of these matters will lead.
Well, this comes as Israeli tanks were also seen taking up positions near the Lebanese border following the strikes on November the 6th. Lebanon's government condemned the airstrikes as a violation of the ceasefire agreement and said it had disarmed about 85% of Hezbollah's weapons caches in the south. It warned that further Israeli attacks could destabilize the fragile peace and inflame internal division. Lebanon added that negotiations with Israel is the only option to stop attacks.
His Excellency the President clarified his proposal for negotiations, saying that our proposal for negotiations to end the Israeli occupation of areas in the south, return Lebanese prisoners held in Israeli jails, and stop the daily attacks on Lebanese areas and the targeting of civilians and civilian and official facilities, which are condemned and continue to this day, is based on our conviction that it is necessary to restore calm and stability to the south and complete the deployment of the army to the internationally recognized southern border.
Hezbollah said it remains committed to the truce, but reiterated its legitimate right to resist the Israeli occupation. The group added that while Lebanon is bound by the ceasefire, it is not obligated to engage in direct political negotiations with Israel. Israel said the strikes were a defensive measure and insisted it would not allow Hezbollah to rearm. A government spokesperson said Israel will continue to defend all its borders and ensure the full enforcement of the ceasefire agreement. Iran strongly condemned what it called savage Israeli attacks on Lebanon after Israel carried out new airstrikes targeting Hezbollah positions in the country's south. In a statement, Iran's foreign ministry urged the United Nations and regional countries to act against what it described as Israel's warmongering, or the act of encouraging a country to go to war. Thursday's escalation came nearly a year after a ceasefire deal ended 13 months of fighting between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah group. Under that agreement, Hezbollah was to disarm, Israel was to withdraw from occupied Lebanese territory, and both sides were to halt cross-border attacks. However, Israel still maintains 5 positions inside of Lebanon and has accused Hezbollah of secretly rebuilding its military networks. The latest strikes have raised fears in Beirut that Israel could resume a full-scale bombing campaign if disarmament efforts stall. Lebanon and Israel are still technically in a state of war, but all the recent armed conflicts with Israel were fought by Hezbollah and not the Lebanese military. With tensions rising along the border, both governments say they committed to a ceasefire, but Thursday's airstrikes underscored just how fragile that truce has now become. That's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again next week at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.